Can I sell you some candy, sir? That's all she said, standing there in the rain clutching a tray of cupcakes like it was the last lifeline she had left. And what came back wasn't kindness. It was a scream. Get out of here before I call security. The woman's voice cut through the storm, sharp and entitled like thunder you wish you could silence. That was the first time Grace Johnson ever set foot in front of the Holbrook mansion, and she had no idea her soaked shoes were about to leave prints in the story of a downfall nobody saw coming. Grace was 26, a nurse once, a mother, always. Life had hit her hard, her job gone, her reputation smeared, because she dared to question hospital executives who played with people's lives like poker chips. And now here she was, walking through the fancy streets of Bel Air with cupcakes she baked at midnight, trying to scrape together enough money to buy medication for her little girl. The rain came down heavy, but Grace stood firm. Her voice didn't shake when she looked at the woman screaming at her. "Ma'am, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to sell these to help my daughter." The woman, Charlotte Holbrook, wife of billionaire Edward Holbrook, wasn't interested in compassion. She pulled out her phone, aiming the camera like a weapon. "I'll make sure the whole neighborhood knows what kind of scam you're running," she sneered. What Charlotte didn't know was that Grace wasn't just selling cupcakes. She was 3 years deep into a personal war nobody could see. She had files, reports, documents, evidence that linked Edward Holbrook to a medical fraud so cold-blooded it had cost hundreds of lives. And that stormy night standing at the gate with soggy shoes and a steel spine, Grace knew this was her moment. From the upstairs window, Edward Holbrook was watching. Maybe he saw dignity where his wife only saw desperation. Maybe he saw a chance to play savior. He came down, voice calmer than Charlotte's fury. "I'm sorry for my wife's behavior. Please come inside. Let's talk like civilized people." Grace walked through the marble hall, her wet footsteps leaving a trail across rugs worth more than a year's rent. She wasn't desperate. She wasn't begging. She was stepping into the lion's den with eyes wide open. Charlotte followed, still fuming. "Why is she here?" "She's lying, Edward. I bet she doesn't even have a daughter." Grace reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled photo. Her little girl, Leah, smiling bravely despite the tubes and hospital gowns. "This is my daughter. She has leukemia. The treatment costs $5,000 a month." Charlotte scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Convenient story. Sick kid at the door, just when we're supposed to feel sorry." Edward studied the photo and Grace studied him. The flicker in his eyes wasn't empathy, it was calculation. 5,000 is a lot. "What kind of work did you do before this?" he asked. "I was a nurse at Riverside Hospital," Grace answered, watching the silence tighten around him. Riverside, the very hospital at the center of his empire, the place she had spent 2 years documenting how lives were traded for profit margins. Charlotte smirked. "So you were fired?" "Figures. An incompetent nurse hawking candy." Grace's voice stayed calm. "I wasn't fired for incompetence. I was fired for speaking up." That's when Edward leaned forward, voice dropping into something colder. "Did you report these irregularities?" Grace locked eyes with him. "To the board, to the health department, to the prosecutor's office." 3 years of reports. For the first time, Edward shifted in his chair. The rain outside pounded the windows like a drum roll. "And what irregularities are we talking about?" he asked. Grace's words came steady. "Overcharging for procedures, denying treatments insurance had already approved, patients dying because care was delayed or denied completely." Charlotte laughed, desperate. "Conspiracies. Don't listen to her, Edward." But Edward wasn't laughing. His eyes never left Grace. "And these reports, did they lead to an investigation?" Grace smiled a slow, knowing smile. Yes. A federal investigation, ongoing as we speak. For a moment, the room went still. Charlotte laughed again. Hollow. She's bluffing. But Edward knew better. The way his jaw tightened told Grace everything. He wasn't just some investor. He was deep in it. She pulled a plastic envelope from her pocket, laying it on the coffee table. Your secretary was kind enough to send me documents. 47 contracts, to be exact, all with your signature. Edward's face drained. You tricked her. Grace tilted her head, almost pitying him. No, Edward. She's been working with us for 2 years. The knock at the door came like thunder. 3 black SUVs had pulled up outside. Men in suits were stepping into the storm. Edward's composure cracked. Wait, we can fix this. I'll pay you. How much do you want? Grace laughed, the sound raw and free. Your first instinct is to buy my silence. That's all I needed to hear. She paced slowly across the rug, her voice sharp as glass. I studied you for 3 years. Every speech about corporate responsibility, every photo op with sick kids, every award you collected. Do you know what's funny? You got a humanitarian award the same month you denied chemotherapy to 17 children. Charlotte's hand shook as she picked up one of the photos Grace spilled across the table. A little girl no older than 6 smiling from a hospital bed. Edward, tell me this isn't real. But Edward's excuses fell flat. Sometimes hospitals have to make hard decisions. Grace cut him off. No, Edward. You had veto power over every expensive treatment. You chose profit over children's lives. The doorbell rang again, long loud. Grace opened it herself. Federal agents stormed in, led by Marcus Lee, the prosecutor who had been building the case with her for years. His voice was ice. Edward Holbrook, you are under arrest for medical fraud and manslaughter. Charlotte gasped, eyes wide with horror. Edward tried one last desperate shout. You don't know who you're messing with. I have lawyers. Grace didn't even turn to him. They're being arrested right now. The agents cuffed him, read his rights, marched him through the very gates where Grace had once been told she didn't belong. Outside, cameras flashed, reporters shouted. The storm was still raging, but for Grace, it felt like the first breath of clean air in years. Months later, the Holbrook mansion wasn't a mansion anymore. It had been turned into a community health center, a place where kids like Leah got treatment without paperwork standing between them and life. Edward sat in a federal prison cell serving 25 years with no parole. Charlotte, stripped of her status, worked at a small-town clinic, her diamond rings long gone, and Grace. She didn't just survive. She rose higher. She became the new director of the Federal Medical Fraud Unit, turning the very humiliation she endured into the sharpest weapon against the empire that had underestimated her. Her daughter Leah was in remission, thriving, dreaming of becoming a doctor. People still stopped Grace on the street asking how she managed to stay calm, how she waited 3 years pretending to be broken while secretly weaving the trap. Her answer never changes. Men like Edward destroy themselves. All I had to do was give them the rope. And maybe that's the part that stings most. Edward thought money made him untouchable. In the end, it was his arrogance that dragged him down. But here's the real question for you watching. What do you think? Was Grace right to wait 3 years, gathering every piece of proof, letting more people suffer so she could take down the entire empire at once? Or should she have gone public sooner, even if it meant fewer lives saved in the long run? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because justice isn't just about what happens in court. It's about what we as a society decide is right. And if this story struck a nerve, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes patience isn't weakness. It's the most powerful weapon we've got.